that support, but there has to be more resources put in.
The NHS Confederation, which speaks on behalf of all organisations that plan, commission and provide NHS services, bills itself as the authentic voice of the NHS leadership. So we can hear that voice now in the shape of Niall Dickson, Chief Executive. Good afternoon, Neil.
Good afternoon.
Is this a watershed moment?
Well, we've certainly been seeing failure of constitutional standards for some time, but I think this is not like anything we've seen before. And we've constantly argued that the government needs to stop stumbling from budget to budget, putting a bit of extra money in here, then finding it's not enough, or attaching a whole series of strings and conditions which then actually doesn't deliver. And I think that as a society we need to agree what's needed over the next 10 or 15 years so that we have a longer term view for both health and social care. I think the two are absolutely linked to one another. And we need to stop in a way just sort of saying, well, give us an extra few hundred million and that will do the problem. The answer is a few hundred million was added this time and it hasn't solved the problem. We need to look at this over the longer period. That doesn't mean having a great long royal commission or whatever, but we've certainly just launched a study with the Institute of Fiscal Studies and the Health Foundation to look at what are the funding needs going to be going forward over the next 15 years. And then I think we do have to raise this with the political class as a whole and say, are you willing to work out how we fund an acceptable system of health and care in this country? Because if you're not, we certainly won't meet those standards. More importantly, we'll see individuals suffering and in some cases dying prematurely.
Well, you've raised a number of important points there, which I'd like to come back to, but the NHS providers are very specific. Increase the NHS budget by 153 billion by 2023. Is that broadly right?
Well, I don't know whether that particular figure is right, and that's why we've commissioned the Institute for Fiscal Studies to look at what are the objective funding needs. There have been quite a lot of studies which have clearly demonstrated so far that the health service is underfunded. What I think we need to do is try and achieve a degree of political consensus. I think that's enormously difficult in the current climate.
I was going to say, can you do that? And particularly when you're talking about funding over 10 to 15 years through several parliaments, maybe several changes of government?
Well, I think there may be a way in which we can try and reach some kind of compact, and it may not be between the political parties, but with the political parties as they put their manifestos forward for the next election. And I'm not saying there isn't additional funding needed now, but if we could move to a situation where we could encourage the political parties to have a very serious debate and to recognise that something very significant is happening here. We're going to see a doubling in the number of people over 85. So if you think it's bad now, it's going to get an awful lot worse. So we really do have to sit down as a society and decide what proportion of our national wealth do we wish to put into this, and are we willing to do that? And, of course, we need to have a discussion about how we're going to pay for it.
Niall Dickson, thanks very much. And the briefing room tonight at 8 p.m. on Radio 4 asks exactly that question. Are we willing to pay more to fund the NHS?